That's right, everybody. It is lo-fi. It is low budget. It is 100% DIY. In my case, I guess it would be DIM, do it myself. But I don't like that acronym. That acronym, you know, DIM equates to dim. And I try not to be dim. I try to be a bright spark, I swear. So I'm just going to drop all pretext, drop all pretense, cease any and all pretending, and simply take a seat back and wait for my camera to come back into focus so it can see me. Come on, camera, you can do it. You can do it. Focus. You know, that's what they tell people in a moment of crisis. Focus, focus. You got to focus. Focus, camera. The people want to see me in clarity. Let's see if we can make it focus, okay? I don't know. I guess I'm going to have to assume that it will get back into focus eventually. So yeah, we're going to start off looking all blurry and kind of not all there, but that's the beauty of cable TV, the spirit of which I'm keeping alive. Every week on Tent Talks Tunes. Every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Facebook. For as we know, that's where all the action is, with all the cool kids. And all I ever wanted was to be a cool kid, I swear to God. So yeah, we're here. We're also archived forever on my YouTube channel and archived forever on Facebook. And I don't know why this camera's not focusing. What gives? What gives? So far, I've been relying in large part on the kindness of strangers to help me with my AV needs here on Tent Talks Tunes. But you know, it just might be time for me to ask Santa Claus, a.k.a. my personal bank account, for a real streaming camera. Maybe if I make enough money over the holiday season, I'll actually be able to purchase a high-res, actual focusing video camera, which will be able to handle close-ups and non-close-ups. Ah, there we go. I got it. Now I'm just like Johnny Nash. I can see clearly now. The fuzz is gone. So yes, thank you everybody for tuning in and turning on and dropping out of your minds with Tent Talks Tunes. Let me take a look at the... oh, hey, look at that. I got 2 pairs of glasses on. Wow, now I can't see anything. Now everything looks to me just the way that camera... just the way the picture did a minute ago. Now everything looks that way. This is very bad news. I can't do this anymore. I gotta stop. Whoa! Okay, that's better. Yeah, okay. We'll use those. At a buck a throw, I got nothing to lose. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in and being here. Let's go through our standard procedure here on Tent Talks Tunes, which is to check the bulletin board and check the mailbox, and then check the tunes, man. Excuse me. Everything we're talking about this week directly relates to the mailbox. Gotten a lot of good stuff, so we'll delve into that in a minute. First, the bulletin board. Well, the bulletin board, you can see, has got some very impressive and important items tacked up on it. 2 of them, and they're both occurring on the exact same weekend. First of all, we got the rock and roll, baby. The rock and the roll. We got the roll and the rock. Anti-Scene. Destructo Blitzkrieg weekend. First weekend of November. We're playing some shows. We're playing at Reggie's in Wilmington, North Carolina. We're headlining Scumstock at the Brass Mug in Tampa, Florida. And we've got one date in between, which has not been 100% confirmed, but the odds are looking real good. When the date is confirmed, you will hear not only from me, but from us in the almighty Anti-Scene. So if you are anywhere in the vicinity of the Carolina Shore or the Central Florida West Coast, or a certain point in between, which I think is going to be Jacksonville, Florida. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what it's going to be. If you're anywhere near any of those locales, make sure that you've canceled every single plan that you might have had already. Hop on your camel and trot on over to see Anti-Scene live. It's going to be the world debut of the Clayton, Hannibal, Tent, Wheat lineup. And I predict pure destructo. Mark my words. Now, if you cannot get yourself to the sunny southeast that weekend, got a great consolation prize for you in the northeast. That is the Danbury Record and CD Expo, November 5th at VFW Hall number 149 in downtown Danbury. I am the co-promoter of it, and this is actually kind of a bellwether episode in the history of the Danbury Record and CD Expo. It will be the first one, even though I'm the co-promoter, it's going to be the first one that I'm not going to be in attendance at, because I'm going to be rocking and rocking with Anti-Scene. But I'm doing all the booking of the dealers and the promo, and I'm putting all my blood, toil, tears, and sweat into it up to the very moment that I have to leave to go to North Carolina. So it's going to be a good one. The VFW Hall is the perfect natural habitat for a record show. We went down there and scouted the place out. It looked great. Loved it. I think it's going to be really good. And if I could clone myself and be two places at once, I would be in Danbury at the Record and CD Expo and rocking out with Anti-Scene. But there's only one of me, so I got to go and rock and roll, baby. Let's see what else is on the bulletin board. Oh, we got the X-ray from my recent surgery, and you might have noticed I'm still sporting my custom pink cast. I was taking a walk around the neighborhood the other day, and a car pulled up to me and said, "Hey, man, what happened to your arm?" And I'd never met the contents of the car before. I said, "Oh, broke it a long time ago, just got it fixed." And the dude in the car said, "Why the pink cast?" I said, "I want to be seen." He said, "Right on, brother," and took off. So let's grab that Danbury tap water and hoist it and have a sip in honor of the pink cast and being noticed by everybody around me. Feels good. This is kind of like a mark of my progress, and it's been progressing very well. I can literally mark my recovery day by day. I'm able to do more with my grip, with my flexibility. I can now maybe not. I can almost pick up a semi-full gallon of Danbury tap. If I brace it against the cast, I can do it, but otherwise, no. But last week I couldn't even do that, so that's promising. I also had one of those creative episodes the other night when I got this idea. While I was sound asleep, I woke up and I just had this musical idea in my mind that I had to get out. I had to get it out of my head and get it through my fingers and into the tape recorder. And so I was laying there in a semi-conscious, half awake, half asleep daze, I guess you would call it, in the twilight zone. And this idea for a song just kept formulating itself. By the time I woke up, I had it. And I was able to get out of bed, hook up the guitar and the tape recorder and record a demo, a hot new demo that I pitched to the unimpeachable president for life himself, Jeff Clayton, for consideration to be played by Anti-Scene. He gave it a thumbs up. That made me very happy. The fact that I was able to record it, playing bass and guitar in my cheap-ass drum machine with the cast, and it did not cause me excruciating pain, was a very, very large step forward. So that, my friends, is very good news. My next appointment with the orthopedic surgeon is on September 2nd, and Lord willing and the creeks don't rise, this thing's going to come off, because that'll be almost exactly 6 weeks since it was operated on, and that was the original window that they gave me for recovery. So it's been 4 weeks now. In 2 weeks, we're going to have it looked at. And yeah, I can cross the fingers just about. We're going to cross all of our fingers for this thing being recovered enough to get the cast off. So thank you, everybody who's been asking. Your concern, definitely touching, and I will keep you posted. And let's take a look at the monitor again and see if anybody's got anything to say. Oh, we see some comments. I see some people tuned in. Let's see if we can give some shout-outs to you people out there. Let's see. Neil says, out of focus, blue cheer style. Damn straight. We got Kane and Jordan up there in Maine. We got Greg in Connecticut. And the mysterious others who are watching. Don't know who you others are. The monitor won't tell me, but thank you for tuning in. Now, the flashcard that I showed at the beginning, the cause of all my focusing problems, Bloody Apostles, the 7-inch single by this hot new band featuring myself, Paul Ledney of Prophonatica, P.P. Duvet of the Murder Junkies, and Brian Zickafoos, the world-renowned visual artist. The 7-inch EP is in production. It will be out on Hell's Headbangers Records. We're hoping by the end of the year. Can't guarantee it, but for those of you who've been asking, that's the progress report. What else is on the bulletin board? Well, obviously, the Malcolm Tent YouTube channel and the official Anti-Scene YouTube channel, which I, to use the modern-day parlance, curate. Subscribe to them both. Get yourselves an education. You won't regret it. Now, we're going to get into some talking of the tunes, because we checked the mailbox, and this week has been quite a varied and wonderful selection of mail, enough to devote an entire episode of Tent Talks Tunes to. So we're going to do it. First thing, I got a box from my good pal Dennis Highland in Mobile, Alabama. Dennis is the American representative for Jackhammer Records. Jackhammer is a Japanese record label that puts out a lot of extreme metal and hardcore, and also released the Anti-Scene Before I Hang split 10-inch, which, last I saw, Jackhammer Records is having a flash sale on, along with many, many, many other titles. So if you like your stuff imported from the great country of Japan, and you like it extreme, you might want to check out Jackhammer and see just what the terms of their sale are. And even if the stuff's not on sale anymore, you should check it out anyway, because it is high quality product. They all have Obi strips on them, and I love Obis. I'm a sucker for Obis. First time I ever saw a Japanese pressing of a record and had the Obi strip on the outside, I just thought that was so cool. And, I actually have a little bit of AV here. A Japanese pressing, an authentic Japanese pressing, should not be confused with a fake, cheap Taiwanese pressing. No, 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 no. This is a fake Taiwanese pressing. Note the extremely flimsy construction of the cover. It's 2 sheets of paper laminated in extremely thin plastic. Note on the Taiwanese pressing the real low budget graphics. It's kind of an aesthetic unto itself, which I really like. But the Japanese pressings do not have these low budget graphics. Note on the back of the Taiwanese pressing the insanely badly translated lyrics. This is the highlight of Taiwanese pressings. You don't get them all the time. You don't get them on every single Taiwanese record. Sometimes they print the lyrics and they actually get the lyrics right, but sometimes you get these incredible phonetic renditions of the songs. And on The Best of Tom Jones, there's a phonetic rendition of The Green Green Grass of Home. Phonetically translated by some poor sap in Taiwan who's probably working under extreme duress. Let's see. The old hometown like the sum as I stap, worn for the tran, and there meet me is my mama and my papa. Down the road I look and there are merry, hair gold and lips like cherry, is ghoul to touch The green grass of home, yes, they all hui to me on rich smiles. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but that's a great example of Taiwanese generic phonetic lyrics. Can't find stuff like this anywhere else. You can't make it up. And of course, the labels are extremely cheap and extremely poorly done. Lots of misspellings and more phonetic translations. That's why I love them. But the point is, authentic puka Japanese pressings, like the ones that you find from Jackhammer Records, are a lot prettier than that. So anyway, Dennis, who is the American emissary for Jackhammer, sent me a bunch of stuff. Some really cool things, including, wait, where to even begin? There's just so much. So random, too. Well, here's the thing. Here's a random 45. A red vinyl RCA Victor 45 from the 1950s. I don't even know who it is. It's probably Hugo Winterhalter or somebody like that. Can't even read. Oh, it's Alan Jones, the tenor Alan Jones. This is actually cool because this is amongst one of the very, very first 45s ever issued. When RCA Victor introduced the 45 RPM single onto the marketplace, they were all on colored vinyl. And each color corresponded to a different genre of music. Red was classical. I think yellow was kids' records. There were a couple of others. The ones I always look for are the green ones. The green vinyl, green labels were country western. And there's this kind of like brownish, orangish vinyl. I think it was supposed to be sepia tone, but the sepia vinyl was what they called race records, rhythm and blues records. And of course, the green ones and the sepia ones are the ones you never find because they're the coolest. But you find many, 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 many of these red ones, which was the classical color code. And that just pardon me, just goes to show you that at that time, classical was either the best-selling type of music on the marketplace at the time, or it was the type of music that nobody cared about anymore and dumped at all the thrift shops. Which is why you see these red vinyl RCAs all the time. And never the greens and never the sepias. But it's still cool because this is from the very dawn of the 45 RPM single. And I just love these little historical tidbits that you get when you just pick up a common, humble object like this. There is a story behind it. That's neat. And then we got some other 45s in here, including a one from Hialeah, Florida, as Dennis pointed out, on the Drive Records label. Drive was a subsidiary of TK. Peter Brown, he had a hit single. I think it was I Want to Get Funky With You. But Hialeah, Florida, my hometown. They had quite the scene going on there for quite a while. A few others here. This is one that I'm looking forward to hearing. Oh, by the way, Dennis has me pegged. Grand Funk, baby. Look at that custom Grand Funk label. 2 songs from the great We're an American Band album, including Don Brewer's classic, Walk Like a Man. Man, this is good stuff. You know, I've got one very fundamental hardcore rule when it comes to Tent Talks tunes and my personal pages and everything. I don't discuss politics. I don't want to hear about politics. I don't want to talk about politics. I'm not interested in politics in the public forum in the slightest bit. In fact, people who post things that are political on my page, I take them down because there's plenty enough of that elsewhere. I don't need it. I don't want it. I'm all about the music, baby, the music. But I do love political records from days gone by. And Dennis dropped a doozy in this box. This is a record on the ACA label. I have no idea what ACA is. It's by a guy named Billy Hoffman. On the A side, you've got Wallace, George Wallace for 72. And on the B side, Stand for George Wallace. 1972, baby, 50 years ago. This was a huge tempest in the teapot 50 years ago. Now I don't know if anybody even remembers who George Wallace is. But I, as a child of the 70s, remember the controversy surrounding this guy. So to actually find a record that's like, I'm guessing a campaign record for him 50 years later, this artifact is delightful. And I can't wait to hear it because I'm sure it's quite amusing. I have no doubt. So thank you, Dennis, for that. And for some cool random cassettes, including a brand new band from Mobile, Alabama. Their name is actually SSOS or SOSS. But look at that logo, SSOS. Very cool. And we got some weird Japanese CDs packaged as 7-inchers. That's like real Japanese stuff there. Love it. Dennis, I got some things in the mail heading your way. Thank you for the care package. I do appreciate it greatly. Got another box from my pal in Chicago, Jay. He's got a label called Murder Punk Records. And he's kind of like I am. He's got a very soft spot in his heart for hand-lathed records. I'm sure everybody knows about the backlog and the bottleneck and the supply chain issues that are causing ridiculous turnaround times at the pressing plants right now. But there's always an option. I've always believed that. I still believe that. If you can't go one way, go another way. Excuse me. If there's a 1-year turnaround time at the pressing plant, excuse me, find another way to get your records or whatever out. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm so bilious right now. One option that I've always thought was really cool, I've always championed this option. It's pretty dang expensive, and the turnaround time has always been very lengthy. But when you consider, for example, this 10-inch hand-lathed record by The Destroyed, when you consider that you can actually send away to a real craftsman somewhere in the US of A who will do short-run, hand-cut records, each one manufactured in real time on a vintage cutting lathe, on a space-age polymer. These things are just really cool. And even the alleged lo-fi ones sound really good to my ear. I've done quite a few of them on my label, TPOS. I'm sure you can find them if you look TPOS up on Discogs and eBay and Bandcamp. But yeah, cut by hand. And so this band, The Destroyed, which he just released an edition of 25 copies, baby. 25! I have not heard it yet, but I will be playing it very soon. Even comes with a CD of it if your turntable's not working. This is the kind of packaging I just really, really enjoy. All DIY, all handmade. We got another one by Jay's old band, the STDs. This is actually pressed vinyl, an edition of 100. Now, first one stuff by the STDs is pretty dang cool, man. Raucous as heck. 100 copies made. Looks like you got a little bit of blood on that one. I forget who it was, but it's been said that you got to bleed for your art. There's a good example of that. So thank you, Jay, for that. We've got a little bit of a trade going on between his label and my label, and some stuff that he's got, some stuff that I got. He sent me a whole bunch of things, CDs and 7-inch singles. I mean, and just like, packed with the really cool stuff. This is why I love mail, because I get all the good, tangible artifacts. Stickers. Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Murder Punk Records of Chicago, Illinois. You will be getting something in return very, very soon-ish. Soon-ish! Let's drink a toast to the ish qualifier. You put an ish at the end of any word, and everything is possible. Soon-ish. I can deliver you anything you want soon-ish. Any fans of the ish out there? Who's got to say what about what? Yes, Tony, it is correct. Only 25 copies of The Destroyed. You might want to jump on that. Jeff Clayton is saying, take bids on the cast. You know what I got to do, Jeff Clayton, when I'm there in a couple of weeks to, here's another exciting bit of news. I will be in North Carolina in a little bit less than 2 weeks to record the bass cuts for the last song on the new exciting Anti-Scene LP, which is called Great Disasters. We had a last minute song selection on Great Disasters. We had the entire album in the can, and it sounded fantastic. But then our drummer, Sir Barry Hannibal, the well-known prankster, the out-of-control hoax man, pulled a rib on us and composed a song that was so damn good that it had to go on the album. I mean, he sent the demos to everybody, and my first thought was, this has to go on the new album. It was originally scheduled to be on the next album that we're doing, a project called Raw Meat, which is a collaboration between Anti-Scene, Tesco V, and the guitar player from the Pagans. You want an all-star heavyweight lineup? That is an all-star heavyweight lineup. So anyway, we were brainstorming and trying to figure out a way to get the last couple of songs for this Raw Meat thing, and Barry came up with a song that he demoed and sent around, and I think everybody in the band who heard it had the exact same thought at the same time, because I know I thought it. I thought, this song is too good. I want this song to belong to Anti-Scene exclusively. I don't want to share it with anybody. Sorry, Tesco. Sorry, anybody else. We can be selfish sometimes. We can be greedy sometimes. Sometimes we got to look out for number one, for numero uno. And as Frank Zappa said, number one ain't you. What can I say? What can I say? So Anti-Scene we kind of hijacked our own song from that project, and now it's going to be on Great Disasters. And as I just mentioned earlier, the prognosis is looking really good, so I am confident that I will be able to go into the studio in about less than 2 weeks and lay down the bass part properly for this song and get Great Disasters put in the can, man. Very excited. And since I'm swerving around a little bit, I might as well do a little bit of show and tell on this object right here. On Anti-Scene's official Facebook page about a week ago, Jeff Clayton put out an APB for suggestions. Because at Anti-Scene Incorporated, we like to change the set list stuff. We don't like to play the same set all the time. So Jeff put it out to the public, to the people, the question, what Anti-Scene songs do you want to hear when we play live? Send us a list of 5, and we will tabulate it. So the other night, I went through that list, and I don't know if Jeff has done this, I don't know if Barry has done this, I don't know if Walt has done this, but I did it, because I'm just a statistician at heart. I just love facts and figures and raw data. I sat down with the list, and I wrote out the songs, and I wrote out how many votes each song got. I doubt you can read that, and I kind of hope you can't. These are all abbreviations in chicken scratch anyway. But yes, each song and the number of votes it got. And there were some kind of surprising, not only surprising suggestions, but also surprising how many songs got lots and lots of votes, including some real deep, deep cuts that the people demanded to hear live from Anti-Scene. So the results are in. Of course, there's a slight caveat, just a slight caveat. As Joseph Stalin said, the people who cast the votes decide nothing. the people who count the votes decide everything. Now, I am not saying that anti-scene are Stalinist. In fact, I will say that we're not Stalinist. Stalinism is not cool, baby. It ain't cool. But you got to admit, when you got the stats and the facts and figures in your own hand, and you're the only one who's got them, and no one else can read them, boy, that's a feeling of power. That's a feeling of power, my friends. Power. As Iggy and the Stooges would say, raw power. One could even say absolute power in these matters. Absolute power. We will try not to think about what absolute power does. We're going to try very hard not to go there. We're really going to try hard. I swear I'm going to try. Very hard. Hard-ish, for sure. I guarantee a hard-ish effort not to let absolute power do what absolute power does when it comes to the votes for what Anti-Scene should play live on this next round of shows. And I really don't have to, because the votes are pretty cool. A lot of good votes for a lot of good songs. So we'll be seeing what happens as a result of this soonish. Boy, I got to take a swig after all that. See, I don't do politics, but I'm very happy to reference politicians of the past when it suits my purposes. When it suits my purposes. Anyway, my delusions of grandeur are starting to get to me. So I'm going to focus, like I did earlier, and get back to Tent Talks Tunes. I've been in the field lately, finding some cool things that I want to show and tell you guys. Excuse me, I went to a record show, a record swap meet in North Haven, Connecticut over the weekend. And I'm the kind of guy that when I go to a record show, I look at everything. Everything. Because you figure North Haven is almost an hour drive from here. So if I'm going to drive an hour to go to a record swap meet, I'm going to maximize, baby. I'm going to look at everything. Maybe I'm cuckoo. Maybe I got some dolor en el cabeza. But that's the way I roll. And that's how I find some really good stuff. So it took a long time and a lot of digging, but I want to show and tell some really cool things I got at the record swap. One of the first things to catch my eye was this. There was a dealer from Germany, and I guess he brought over a bunch of stuff from his German homeland. Spotted right away the generic German Decca picture sleeve, and the fact that London was indeed a subsidiary label in Europe. And lo and behold, and I'm going to, once again, I got to apologize for the focus of this camera here. We've seen it can be pretty persnickety, but this is a German pressing of Ape Call by Nervous Norvus. And Nervous Norvus is one of my favorite novelty acts of all time. I'm sure you know his big hit single, Transfusion. Ape Call was the follow-up, which was not quite as successful, but still really great. The B-side kills, man. Wild Dogs of Kentucky. It's a song that is not in the vein of Ape Call or Transfusion. It's a really good storytelling song. And it just amazes me when I think about a record like this. A record like this is so uniquely American. I mean, it's just chock full of American vernacular, American slang. The music is American, and yet it was able to find a market in Germany. People in Germany were interested enough in this record and this kind of music to warrant the German branch of Decca to release it as a 45 over there. Was it a hit? I don't know. But just the fact that something so obscure and so very, very American could have a chance in a completely foreign marketplace, I think it's just really, really cool. The only sort of corollary I can think of that comes from there to here would be Heino. The fact that Heino records were pressed in America and sold respectable numbers, at least in the German community. And if you guys don't know Heino, do yourselves a favor and look up Heino. At bare minimum, look up and do an image search for Heino. 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 Heino is what German imported music is all about. Heino videos are really amazing too. So I guess if the Germans could get Nervous Norvus, we could get Heino. That's what I call fair trade, baby. Fair trade. Let's take a quick look at the comments here. Oh yeah, by the way, the original, the whole reason I even went off onto that great big tangent about anti-scene was that Jeff Clayton said I should take bids on the cast. I got to get it signed first. I think once I get it just chock full of signatures, maybe I'll get everybody from every band I'm in right now to sign this. And then I'll take bids. What do you guys think of that? You think that's a good way to help pay the bills? Think that's a good way to help buy some cat food for Harry the cat, who's currently outside somewhere? What do you think? Fully autographed hot pink cast by all the bands I'm in. That would probably help pay for at least one of those titanium screws. Maybe that one. Not sure. I was kind of bummed. I don't know if you guys can see the x-ray, but there's a great big black space there where all of my broken bones used to be. I asked the surgeon if I could keep the bones they took out. They said no. That would have been a badass souvenir. Another 45 I found. I guess we're in kind of a novelty record mode here. The somewhat obscure, somewhat rare second 45 RPM by Weird Al Yankovic. Another one rides the bus. On TK Records, we talked about Glades Records a second ago. TK Records from Hialeah, Florida. Home of KC and the Sunshine Band and Timmy Thomas. I think Gwen McCrae had a couple of records on TK. I'm not sure. But yeah, Weird Al. His second ever 45 was on TK. Another one rides the bus. It was not a hit. If I recall correctly, this is when it was still just him and his accordion. He didn't have a band yet. And I love Weird Al. I think Weird Al is a total genius. So to find this in a loose pile of musty, dusty old 45s, that's the thrill of discovery. And by the way, I've got one of these already, so I will be selling this copy. This copy of Another One Rides the Bus by Weird Al Yankovic is for sale from me. If you want it, talk to me. I'll tell you a thing or two. Here's another one of those things. I talk a lot about local bands, especially bands from certain eras. Bands who sort of came close. For a few minutes, there was a band from Brewster, New York, who moved down to New York City. There's a big difference, my friends. Big difference between Brewster, New York and New York City. And if you've ever been to Brewster, New York, you know there's a big difference between Brewster, New York and New York City. When you're young and you've got rock and roll aspirations, when you're all dressed up and got nowhere to go, you got to go from Brewster, New York to New York City, which luckily is very easy. All you got to do is catch the Metro North south to the very last stop, and you're in New York City. And you get off, and you form a group called the Star Spangles. Look at these Brewster boys on a 7-inch picture sleeve, fully manufactured on none other than, wouldn't you know it, Capitol Records. Oh my God, these guys from Brewster were on Capitol for a minute or two. and they had this one song. Which one of the two of us is going to burn this house down? Great tune. There's a video for it and everything. Wasn't a hit. I don't know why. Wasn't a hit. Should have been a hit. In my book, this song is a hit. And when I get back on the air on WNHU, which is still pending but is going to happen, mainly because I want to get my full dexterity back, so I can work the 2 turntables and the CD players and the internet and all that. It's still kind of hard to do that with this thing on, but once this thing is totally off, I'm going to firm up that date, and you'll be hearing the Star Spangles on my radio show on WNHU. I love wild music. I love wild sounds. I love wild cultural artifacts. Since I love it wild, that's why I love stuff like Wild Man Steve. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh. For the longest time in my life, I never cared for dirty comedy. I never cared for dirty humor. I thought it was juvenile. I thought it was stupid. Well, I've come to the conclusion that it probably is juvenile and it is stupid, but when it's done right, it's really funny. And Wild Man Steve is one of those guys who does it right. Really dig the Wild Man. I got a bunch of Wild Man Steve on 8-track. If you can believe that. I got tons of Wild Man Steve 8-tracks. And I pick up his vinyl whenever I possibly can. And I was actually I was just checking out the Immortal album by Wild Man Steve and Gene Tracy, because Jeff Clayton on his Break On Through, which aired yesterday as it always does on the Anti-Scene YouTube Facebook page, he did a tour of his Break On Through studios, which is kind of like a museum, and he focused in on his 8-track, honest to God 8-track cartridge of the Wild Man Steve Gene Tracy collaboration called The Great Insult. And I've heard so much about it, and I just picked up this Wild Man Steve album. I had to hear a snippet of it. I could find very little of it posted anywhere, probably because of its content, which is scurrilous as hell, I'm sure. But what I did hear was really funny. And when you get a dirty white comic and a dirty black comic from the early 70s together at a Holiday Inn lounge, you can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong. So it's official now. The Wild Man Steve Gene Tracy album is on my want list. And I'm going to find it somewhere. Either on vinyl or 8-track, maybe cassette. I don't know. But my man, Wild Man. This is for sale too, because I already got one in my collection. For sale! Hit me up. A little while back on Tent Talks Tunes, I did an entire episode devoted to The Clash. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you will be able to look it up. It is archived, in which I talk about The Clash. 2 episodes on The Clash. One about Clash albums, one about Clash 45s. I must have shown and told this one. Although at the time I didn't have one for sale. Now I do, because I found a spare. Janie Jones and The Lash. This is the Janie Jones. If you guys know the song Janie Jones on the first Clash record, Janie Jones was a madame who made a lot of headlines and served some jail time in the 70s in England, and Mick Jones wrote that song about her, Janie Jones. So she served her time, repented, blah, 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 got out of jail and hooked up with The Clash, who did a record with her under an assumed name, Janie Jones and The Lash. Now, this was right after Topper was fired from the band. So this is Mick, Paul, and Joe with several of the Blockheads, Ian Dury and the Blockheads. The Clash and the Blockheads worked together a lot, starting with the London Calling sessions when they got the keyboard player from the Blockheads, Mickey Gallagher, to tour with them. And then later on, Norman Watt Roy, the Blockheads bass player, played a lot of bass for the Clash in the studio. And who were the horn players? Nope, not Mel Collins. I think the Barnacle Brothers. But this also has Charlie Charles from the Blockheads playing drums instead of Topper. So it's almost a perfect Blockheads Clash hybrid backing up Janie Jones. And, you know, musically it's great. Janie Jones, of course, was not put in jail for her ability to sing, but it's a really cool piece of Clash history that not a whole lot of people know about. And since it's a spare copy, this one is for sale. Talk to me, people. Talk to me. Send me a personal message if you want this. Or the Wild Man Steve. Or what else was I trying to flog? The Star Spangles I'm keeping. The Weird Al. Bruce Springsteen was born to run. I was born to sell. So we're batting 500 so far in the sell keep sweepstakes. Here's what I'm keeping. Anytime that I see the Alston Records label, which is a subsidiary of Atlantic Records, whenever I see the Alston, whether the red label or the green label, I pick it up and I squint extra hard. If it got my specs on, I don't have to squint because it's right there before my very eyes, and I can see clearly that, yep, if it's on Alston, the odds are pretty good that it's going to be a 45 by Clarence Reed, kids, a.k.a. Blowfly. Woohoo! I have been very lucky lately when it comes to finding Clarence Reed records. This is like the third or fourth one I found in the past month or so. All in the wild, all just by digging, and in the midst of all that rubble, we find a gem, a diamond in the rough, Clarence Reed. And this one, for me, was very educational because when Blowfly, Clarence Reed's dirty alter ego, Clarence Reed, stop me guys, Blowfly did an in-store appearance at my late lamented brick and mortar record store, Trash American Style. Blowfly was on tour, and they had a night off, and as Mike Watt once said, if you're not playing, you're paying. So rather than just have a night off and sit around idle, Blowfly and his band came to Trash American Style and played a show. And it was great. I mean, come on, we're talking about Blowfly here. It was so cool to have Clarence Reed, a.k.a. Blowfly, and his band in my store basically playing for Pass the Hat, you know, because they had a night off, and you got to do something, right? And I didn't know that one of the songs they played that night, which was called Funky Party, was indeed, as we just saw, a Clarence Reed song. I had no idea until I saw this record. So I just thought that was really interesting that Blowfly would do Clarence Reed material in a Blowfly set. And I wonder if anybody out there who's a Blowfly fan, excuse me, or a Clarence Reed fan knows if he did that very often. Did Blowfly incorporate Clarence Reed songs into the set very often? I don't know. I'm curious. If anybody knows, please post a comment. Let me know. Because it was great. And I haven't played this one yet, but I'm gonna play it. You better believe I'm gonna play it. And yesterday, just yesterday, I was playing one of my favorite Wilson Pickett records, which I, of course, did not bring here for show and tell. A really cool Wilson Pickett record, and I'm going to try to remember the name, because I'm terrible with that stuff, called Don't Put My Love Down, I believe is the name of it. Don't Put Down My Love. Don't Put My Love Down. Whatever. 1971, Atlantic Records. It's Wilson Pickett starting to get into his Philadelphia phase. And I was reading the line notes, and wouldn't you know, Clarence Reed has a songwriting credit on a Wilson Pickett album. Effing cool. Clarence Reed is one of those guys who is everywhere if you just look to find him. So my fandom for Clarence Reed, a.k.a. Blowfly, grows by the day. And this is a good time for me to just mention that of the many projects that I've got coming up on TPOS, somewhere on the stove is a reissue of the Anti-Scene Blowfly split 7-inch EP. It is happening. Just don't know exactly when. But I've been trying to get some kind of Blowfly release on my label for a very long time. And not only that, it's going to be a split with a band I'm in. I'm not on this particular record, but I am in Anti-Scene, baby. So I'm kind of like on a record with Blowfly twice removed or something like that. You know who else my fandom for increases by the minute? Because I always kind of knew this dude was cool, but I never really appreciated the sheer depth and breadth of his genius until fairly recently. Better believe it, kids. Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim. Never had a copy of this one, but now I do. I scored a copy of his second album. I swear to God, this album is brilliant, with a capital B-R-I-L-L-I-A-N-T. If you don't believe me, side 2, track 1, Great Balls of Fire. Yes, the Jerry Lee Lewis tune done by Tiny Tim. When I dropped the needle on that one the other day, after having never heard it before in my life, I just about fell off the couch. Un-effing believable. So yes, this goes into the personal collection because I never had it before. The entire album is great. Produced by Richard Perry. Richard Perry, who later went on to produce hits for just about everybody, from Ringo Starr to the Pointer Sisters. He started out producing Tiny Tim. And the production on this album is just fantastic. It's like the perfect combination of Tiny Tim's peculiar genius and Richard Perry's already fully formed production genius. I wish someone was paying me to do this advertising for this album, man. It's just such a great record, though. I want to talk about it. And I'm glad I got it. That was a score. And it's also kind of synchronistic. Because as you may or may not know, at this very moment in time, I do indeed have a Tiny Tim record on my label TPOS. The awesome Tiny Tim Isidore Fertel split single. I was a little bit late to the Tiny Tim party, but you better believe me, Jack, I jumped on the bandwagon the minute I was able to. So I've released this record on TPOS, Tiny Tim on the A side, his protege Isidore Fertel on the B side. And Dennis Highland, you're getting one of these very soon. How is that synchronistic? Besides the fact that I do want people to go on to Discogs and go on to eBay and buy this record, or better yet, message me directly and buy this record on TPOS. How is that synchronistic? Well, it's synchronistic because I was talking to a fellow who turned me on to a completely unreleased tune by Isidore Fertel. And just yesterday gave me permission to release it on TPOS. Yay! I got some more Isidore Fertel on my label soon-ish. I don't know exactly what form it's going to take. I'm going to try to track down some more by Isidore Fertel. Apparently, the dude recorded a lot of stuff. But the story that this dude has been telling me about his recordings of Isidore Fertel, and Tiny Tim for that matter, are just like so typical of the way things went with Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim recorded pretty much anything for anybody at any time. All you had to do was ask. You know, if you sat down and said, or if you went up to Tiny Tim and said, hey Tiny, will you play me a song? He would whip out the ukulele and just start singing and playing. You could aim a tape recorder at him, and he would let you record anything you wanted. And in fact, it was apparently impossible to stop him. So there are literally thousands and thousands of Tiny Tim recordings out there made by people under similar circumstances. And a lot of, a fair number of them have come out. Most of them haven't. And it's one of my missions to try to track some of those down to release them on TPOS, because I love Tiny Tim. And so I met this guy at the Danbury Record and CD Expo a few years ago, and he was admiring the Tiny Tim Isidore Fertel split 7-inch on TPOS and said, you know, I recorded those guys. This dude had I forget, either a radio show or a cable TV show sometime back in the late 70s, and he recorded like an entire session of Tiny Tim and Isidore Fertel live in this graveyard. And I said, well, I would love to release it. He said, let me check and ask, because he had a partner in the radio show or whatever it was. The search of their archive revealed that the tape of the session was lost. Just lost. No one knew where to find it. But one song did survive because they aired it on the radio and they recorded the broadcast. And that is just like so typical of so much of Tiny's and Isidore Fertel's material. It was recorded, but has vanished into the ether. Caramba! Well, one Isidore Fertel song is better than no Isidore Fertel songs. They saved the one, and they gave me permission to put it out. So I'm happy about that. So if you or your next door neighbor or your aunt or your uncle or somebody who lives across the street from you recorded Tiny Tim, let me know. I want to release it, because I love Tiny Tim. Here's a song I found at the record show. This is one of those deals where the cover just jumped right out at me, and I said, I need this record. I have got to have this record. I will have this record. It's one of those records, I don't know if they can make it these days, but check this out, gang. Look at the cover and look at the title. Songs of Tragedy by Hank Snow. Famous laments to tug your heart. Nothing but bad news from start to finish. Nothing but death, disease, little children run over by trains, soldiers shot to pieces, prisoners being executed, dead children dying, little old people growing old and dying of loneliness. One entire album. And my God, what a great cover. Hank doesn't look too tragic. It kind of looks like he's enjoying himself, actually. I think he's having a good time. Don't know about anybody else listening to this thing. I haven't had the nerve to put it on yet. I'm kind of nervous. I don't know, man. I'm in a good mood right now. I think I might want to stay that way. But yeah, it exists. I picked it up, and because I'm such a good friend to you, I'm willing to sell it. This one's for sale. As tempting as it is to keep it, I'm going to let this one go. So if you need songs of tragedy in your life, an entire album's worth of songs of tragedy, talk to me. I will hook you up. And the last record I found that I want to talk about is by one of those bands who I love with a passion. A band that I think should have been huge but weren't. And I'm going to do you a favor right now and hep you to this awesome group, this Scottish new wave band called Deaf School. These guys are top shelf musicians, funny as hell, very smart. Probably too smart for their own good. Kind of in the vein, sort of Sparks. But they don't sound like Sparks at all. But sort of like that. And this is actually a double album. I guess the record company in the States was really banking on it because they released a double album of 2 of their records as a twofer. Didn't sell for jack. I'm pretty sure that Deaf School never toured the U.S. So they just kind of came and went, sank like a stone. But man, this is really, really good. Even if you don't want to buy this record from me, and I think you should, but even if you don't, look them up. Give it a listen. If you like that sort of very high IQ, early 80s new wave, Deaf School. I love these records, both of them. Found a copy. I'm willing to flip it to you because the price is right. And that, my friends, wraps up this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. I hope you found it entertaining. I hope you found it educational. Hope you enjoyed living vicariously the life that I lead, going through the dusty stacks of the record swaps and the thrift shops and opening mail and looking at all these wonderful artifacts and just getting to meditate and ruminate upon their histories and their stories and the personalities involved with them and people like me and people like you who love them and collect them and play them to death. Because that's what they're for, kids. They're made to be played. So I think I'm going to toddle on off and play some of them right now because I got a thirsty ear. I do expect to be back in 167 hours' time. Until we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.